he talks about Raja Yoga, and Raja Yoga is the most exalted path. And it's in order to attain the highest state of consciousness, or samadhi. Patanjali describes the 8 rungs on the yoga ladder, which is Raja Yoga, and that's our tradition. And I like when he talks about how he had been taught these, from the time he was a child, but there are these lofty ideas that it's one thing to just like rattle them off. It's a completely different thing to be able to understand and live them. It is akin to being able to quote the Yoga Sutras, or being able to quote the yamas and the niyamas, or actually living the yamas and the niyamas. And this is where Swamiji says so many times, you don't have to know a lot, but what you know you have to practice. Because it becomes very dangerous to quote things and have no understanding of them, and certainly to not even live by them. So it becomes very, very dangerous in our lives to say ahimsa is nonviolent, but don't live anywhere near a life of ahimsa. So we need to be very, very vigilant of, it doesn't matter, it's like I said, it's more dangerous to have a lot of knowledge than to have a little knowledge and live by that little knowledge, than have a lot of knowledge and do nothing with it. So be mindful of what you keep putting in your head. And if you're not digesting it and you're just spewing it out, that's not very good. And it will not do you any good, and it won't do anyone else any good. This is one of the reels this week was talking about being a preacher versus a teacher, and said during the Kali Yuga that the ones who can shout the loudest, right, scream the biggest, talk the most, those are the preachers. But that's who we give our power to. And watch teachers. Do you want to have a teacher that has harmony in thought, speech, and action, or is gaining more harmony in thought, speech, and action, and is constantly changing, and not even for ourselves, right? This is, something simple. I work really hard trying to have more harmony in my thoughts, speech, and action, and trying to be mindful. And Lord knows I fail all the time. But like just recently, I was talking to Riley and saying, I can't keep getting oil to put in the lamp to burn upstairs. Because on one hand, I'm going and getting my laundry soap, the little sheets, so that I don't have to have the plastic jugs going into the landfill. But yet I can justify getting these big things of oil to put into the ghee lamp, the lamp up there, to keep it going. Well, I'm still putting it into the landfill, saying that, this is just because I'm doing this light here. No, I'm still hurting the universe. So, it's made this conscious effort to say, okay, there's not going to be another light in there. Maybe on some special occasion, maybe Mahasamadhi, maybe something, there might be. But we need to be very vigilant. You don't say, it's like saying someone says, I love animals, and I will not eat a dog, but I'll eat a cow. There's no harmony there. If you love animals, you love animals. That's the bottom line. You can't justify eating one and not eating another. And we've talked about this before. We are quick to condemn the Koreans because they have factory farms with dogs. Factory farms are factory farms. If you have a factory farm with a dog or a cow, they're suffering. It doesn't matter. So anyway, so we want to have this. So this is when Swamiji says these are lofty. They're grand. They're great. They're spectacular. But it takes effort and time, and a lot. This is where the Yoga Sutra says practice for a long time. It doesn't just mean in this lifetime. It means lifetimes. Because it is hard. This is why I said, if we can scrape through one little thing in this lifetime, if we can know ourselves one speck little better, it won't be a wasted life. And the next time it will be a little bit easier. But if I just go around and I go rattling off what the yamas and the niyamas are, If I'm not living them, I'm just talking. If you're not working on living them, you're just talking. And we have enough talkers in the world right now. We definitely have enough of that. So, so now this is all tying back. So Rama, so we're going to discuss the wedding, and Rama is, and a little bit more of when Rama picked up the bow and he broke it. But so Rama is, he sees Sita, he sees her in the garden, but on the day of the wedding and everything, he is so attracted to her. He's so drawn to her because of her adornments that she's wearing. And when we think of the adornments, it's not, I mean, we always see Mother Sita or we see Lakshmi or something. She has all these jewels and she's got gold coins coming out of her hand. But when we think of these adornments, I want you to think of purity of mind. I want you to think of righteous actions. I want you to think of someone who is kind, who is just, who is complete, is 100% compassionate. That is what Rama is drawn to Mother Sita. It's not her beauty. It's not that she's a princess. It's not that she has spectacular jewels. He's drawn to the adornments of compassion, of righteousness. And those adornments, and remember, Rama represents the soul. So when the soul sees us, and Sita represents the purified intellect, but when the soul sees us actually starting to do some work, when the soul sees us actually paying attention to ahimsa in our lives, right? The soul starts to shine. I shouldn't say shine because the soul is always effulgent, but we've removed a lampshade, and the soul, it gets brighter. The effulgence gets brighter outside of us. People become more drawn to us. So Sita, he's drawn to her, but the soul is drawn to that which is righteous. The soul is drawn to not just spouting off lofty things. The soul is drawn to those who have harmony, thought, speech, and action. So Rama represents the soul who is drawn to these righteous acts, right? Then Shiva's bow. So Shiva's bow represents the being in bed with our samskaras, the illusion of what we think is us. And when the soul sees the transmigration of the soul, coming back life after life after life, thinking I'm female, thinking I'm white, thinking I'm whatever it is I think I am, I'm not. But we get attached to that, and then I just had a little thought. I have to think about that some more. So something that I don't know. It's coming, like there's like bits and pieces, but it could be that being gay could also be this extreme. So maybe you're born female, right? But it could be this extreme attachment to being a man in a past lifetime. So you have that being so drawn and attached to that you bring that back with you, but yet you're in a female body. Anyway, and there's more going on, but I have to figure that out. So Shiva's bow is this illusion that we live in our lives, right? But what happens, Rama, the soul, begins to, when we start to wake up, we start to lift the bow up. We start to remove the illusion of who I think I am. That starts to separate from us. And when we get to some point, right, we break it. And that's what Rama does. So we break that illusion. We break that bow that binds us. So the soul is what is going to eventually break the bow that binds us, the illusion that keeps us coming back in this lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, living this monotonous life of doing the same thing. We took Mom out and we had to do some things with her on Friday. And it was interesting because, she said this to me a couple times now, but I'm thinking about this in our own lives. We actually went to the Thai restaurant, and she really enjoyed it. But she said, this is nice just to break the monotony of my life. But we have the same thing, right? We have this same monotony, this whole thing of being a mother, having a job next lifetime, having to go through school, having to look for all these things to make us happy. She's relating it now to, because she doesn't drive, she doesn't get out, she doesn't do the things that she thought gave her, right, all this happiness or whatever, but those are all distractions. But we live a monotonous life. We keep doing the same thing over and over and over, repeating it.
It's just you keep saying we. I keep thinking you're talking about just you and I. You mean
Yeah. Yes, all of us.
okay. That's true for us, for sure.
Not just us, darling. But it is very monotonous to live and keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's like if I paint this wall green and I think it's going to make me happy, and then I think, no, I'm going to paint it blue. It's going to make me happy. I'm still just painting. I'm doing the same thing over and over. I'm getting angry for the same things. I'm getting sad for the same things. I'm getting excited for the same things. At some point, we have to break that illusion. We have to break the bow. And how are we going to do that? By following the Raja path, the yoga of Raja, the Raja yoga. Let me spin it out there somehow. But this is, part of that is the yamas and the niyamas. And this is when, and the other thing that Rama sees with Mother Sita is that she is the embodiment of peace. And I think that's really, 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 really powerful to think of. She is the embodiment of compassion, but because of all of these adornments, she is the embodiment of peace. And that is that peace that surpasses all understanding. That peace that everything is right in the world because this is exactly the way God wants it to be. There's no question about it. It doesn't mean that we are complacent. That is nothing, nowhere near what it means. But we have this peace about what it is that is happening in life, no matter what is happening. There's the story of Buddha where Ananda, before he became Ananda, was in the woods and in the forest, and his goal was to kill 1,000 people and have their fingers as a necklace around him. And he was at 999, and he gets to Buddha, and he says, I'm going to cut your hand off because I want your fingers. And he holds his hand out, and he says, here, brother, if you need my fingers, take them. If that's what you need. And there was peace about that. And that moment, Buddha was so full of peace that is completely what changed Ananda. That is what made him go from being a ruffian to being Buddha's favorite disciple. So anyway, so Mother Sita represents all of these jewels, give her that peace. And that's what we're going for. So now if we talk about the yamas and the niyamas, ahimsa. And when I think about, or when we think, this is something good for all of us to consider. Do no harm. This is what Hippocrates he talked about. Do no harm. How many times, and thinking about this ahimsa and satya, if we can work with just ahimsa and satya in this lifetime, it is guaranteed that asteya, brahmacharya, and aparigraha, those will just naturally work themselves out. Because if I'm doing no harm, then I won't steal things. If I'm doing no harm, I won't be greedy and hold on to things. If I'm doing no harm, then I will be truthful. But then this means we have to really get in and understand the nitty-gritty of who we are. We need to understand why. Why did I act with violence? Why did I think with violence? Why did I speak with violence? And I'm telling you, everything comes from our sense of lack. If we knew exactly who we are at the core of our being, there would be no reason to lie. There would be no reason to harm. There would be no reason to steal. There would be no reason, none of that stuff. We act, we lie, we steal, we are greedy, we depend on outside things for our happiness. If we knew who we were at the deepest core of our being, we wouldn't be doing any of that stuff. But we don't know who we are. So we go on doing harm. We go on lying. So ask yourself questions. Every night before you go to bed, ask yourself, spend time with these. Did I act in any way that was violent today? And be brutally honest, but at the same time, radically accepting. This is that what Swamiji was talking about, you repent and then do the same thing. Look at it, evaluate it. Okay, why was I acting in violence today? Why did I say something snarky to someone? What was going on there? What was going on with me that I felt I had to say something, that I had to be biting to someone? We only bite, right, when we feel like something is biting us. We blame it on others, but right, we bite ourselves with our own cruelty. Talk to yourself about satya, truthfulness. What do you lie about? Examine, what is it that you lie about? It could be a small lie, it could be a big lie, it doesn't matter. But you need to examine why you are lying about certain things. Get to the root cause of that. If we don't get to the root cause of these things, if we don't examine all these things at the core of our being, then we're just quoting. We're just rattling our mouths off. Our curry holes. So because we don't want to just quote it, we want to live it. It is, I have to keep saying this, it's just really dangerous. And right now during the Kali Yuga, the yoga prophecies, right, talk about all of this stuff that's happening, that will happen, that will continue to happen, but they also say that we can change the trajectory. We have the ability to change the trajectory until it gets to a tipping point. And once it's at that tipping point, you better just buckle up. And when I say buckle up, you better start repeating the mantra all the time, because it's going to be even a bumpier ride. But that's the beauty of yoga, is that, okay, yeah, these things are happening, but it doesn't mean that it has to continue to happen. The Yoga Sutras also say it's very important to build pockets of truth. It's very, very important to have communities. This is Swami Satchidananda, Yogananda, Swami Rama. They all talked about living in community, having a community that supported you in your growth, having a place that you called home that helped propel you forward. So these things are very, very important. So when we talk about asteya, non-stealing, right? It's easy to say, I'm not going to steal the throat spray. Maybe it's easy to say, maybe I'm going to pocket it and take it home or whatever, right? But we steal things all the time. We steal praise, right? Somebody did something and then somebody thinks I did it, and I'm like, and they praise me for doing it, and I'm like, oh yeah. And I don't even offer anything that it was Riley that did it. I just continue taking that praise, that adoration, right? We steal ideas from people and we present them as as our own. We steal attention from people. That's going in line even with the praise, right? We steal and this one is big. It's that lack. We steal what I'm going to call love, because that's what we know it as, right? But it's not really true love. It's what we know as love in this. It's that worldly love, right? We want someone to adore us. We want someone to applaud us. We want whatever it is, right? So we steal that from them. And that becomes very dangerous because it's not me saying something snarky to Lisa and cutting her head off to make myself taller. It's actually me taking advantage of Lisa and getting her to, so say that we're in this relationship, right? And saying that you getting all of her attention. So she's giving me all this attention and I'm taking it, and then that becomes very dangerous. So I'm stealing something from her to make myself better, to make myself feel better. But once again, this goes back to if we realize who we are at the deepest core of our being, we don't need to steal from anything, from anyone. So ask yourself daily, what material things did I steal today? Non-material things. What non-material things did I take today? Who did I take them from? Why did I take them? What was my goal? What was I feeling? Why did I feel like I needed that from that person at that particular time? Brahmacharya, freedom from dependencies and cravings. I think this is a really great one for us to really consider and look at now, especially during the Kali Yuga, right? These cravings that we have that we think are going to make us feel better, that are going to make us happy, these dependencies. What is it that you're dependent upon? Ask yourself, what is it? It could be, we have to be just brutally honest. We think that I'm dependent upon having a relationship with someone, and I think that's going to make me happy. But ask yourself at night, what was I dependent upon today? And we know that if I depend on something, then it's one, I have expectations. Those expectations will never always be met. So at some point, I'm going to be angry because what I depended upon is now making me angry because it's not satisfying me. But it's constantly making me weak, too. It's crutching me. I need to depend on me. I need to depend on who I am inside for my happiness. And a parigraha, non-grasping. So what areas in your life are you grasping? Are you clinging to? Are you clutching? Are you being greedy about? Ask yourself, right? What was I clutching today? So once again, if we can examine ahimsa and satya constantly with ourselves and what is happening, the other three are going to fall into place. And then let's move on. So you can see how really mastering these, Raja, king, royal, the royal path, right? Swamiji's book, The Royal Path, Raja Yoga. You can see how these become the royal path. So maybe make a calendar mark on and for 1 year, really focus on asking yourself the hard questions with these so that we can have the adornments. Because remember, the Ramayana is all about our own self. So Sita represents our purified mind. The adornments of compassion, of righteousness, those are ours. That's who we are. It is the ego that is the other things. So now the niyamas, saucha, not just how pure are my thoughts, but how pure are my actions? And this is where you see a piece of litter on the ground and you go to pick it up. And that looks like a nice, pure action. But in your mind, are you going, oh, I can't believe this idiot just littered here? Then it no longer becomes a pure action. Goes back to, why am I doing what it is I'm doing? If I'm doing something to help someone, Am I doing it for praise? Am I doing it for someone to acknowledge me, for someone to thank me, for someone to adore me, right? Then relate that to your yamas and the niyamas there. So examine the purity of your thoughts, of your speech, right? You say to someone, "Oh, Kaylee, you look so beautiful today." It seems like a nice thing to say, right? But am I saying, "Oh, Kaylee, you look so beautiful today," because I want Kaylee to think, "Oh, I really like Ranjani. She's so nice." So we need to be very mindful. This is why, Swamiji said, if you don't feel like smiling, don't smile. If you don't want to know how someone is doing, don't ask. Be honest. It's much better to be honest about what you're saying and doing than to lead a duplicitous life, which is what we do.
This is related to my Zoltar reading yesterday. He said that the smallest good deed is better than the greatest intention.
Wait, you get this from what?
Zoltar. The little box, like fortune teller.
Oh. The guy in the booth? Okay, now what did he say?
It felt relevant. The smallest good deed is better than the greatest intention.
If it's sincere, right? It's so much more. Yeah, we have to be very sincere with what we're doing. Very, very sincere. Or don't do it. Don't do it, because then you're just you're muddying the waters. You're making the mind even more confused than it already is. Then we go to this santosha. Oh, the other thing about the saucha is not just purity in thoughts, but purity in what you eat too, right? So say you have the option of an orange, or you have an option of a candy bar, and it's a vegan candy bar, but it's still a candy bar. So the purity, right? The best thing to do would be to eat that orange. I was going to say to eat the candy bar, but but we naturally gravitate to those things which aren't good for us because we've spent lifetimes, we have deep samskaras of doing that. So start looking at yourself with everything that you do as you reach for something. And I'm guilty of it. And when was it? It was like, oh, there's the coconut candy bars. I forget what they're called. And I'm like, oh. And then I grabbed it and I was like, oh, I'm going to eat it. And I know I was going to eat it. And then as I was eating it, I'm like, oh, I should have had the orange. So then it's like, then you just stop yourself from even enjoying it, right? And I'm like, actually, so I did. That was the first bite. The second bite, because I can get 2 good bites out of it. The second bite, I'm like, you know what? You've committed. Enjoy it. You've committed to it. So this santosha is, how content are you with the life that you're living? Once again, this is not being complacent. This is being content with what life is giving you at this particular moment. It may be hard, it may be challenging, but life is giving it to me, so there's a reason for it. So how content are you? Tapas, accepting intensity, right? So when it is, because this is Sri Yukteswar, he was the one who, the first person, actually, I don't know that I've ever heard anyone else, like, without giving reference back to him, talk about patience with tapas. And that is to be in a situation and to be patient and wait for the outcome. That is hard. And that is a lot of tapas. A lot of tapas. If I'm just sitting here and I'm waiting, this is not having skin in the game, so to speak. Doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. It doesn't mean I'm not complacent, or it doesn't mean that I am complacent, but I'm letting God decide what needs to happen. I'm not in there screaming, trying to get my way, because this is what I want. So I'm in there screaming and making other people uncomfortable because I think I know what I should get, or screaming because I think I know what Riley should have. No, God knows. So cultivating that patience, that understanding. This goes back to, we don't need to understand God's plan, but doing all of this stuff will give us faith, will help to cultivate that faith to accepting God's plan. How can I possibly understand God's plan? I'm a speck of God. All of me is in God, but not all of God is in me. So how could I possibly understand something so vast? Not until I become one with the one. And so doing all of these things, Svadhyaya, is coming up. And this is, how honest are you with who you are? How honest are you with where you are? It's so important. Because if I'm not honest about who I am, if I'm not honest about where I am, I'm not going to make any progress. How can I begin to even study the scriptures? If I'm not honest about where I am and who I am, the scriptures, once again, I can quote the scriptures, but what good is that? I want to know who I am. I want to know where I am so that I can begin to embody the scriptures. So that when I talk about ahimsa, I know that I'm less harmful today than I was yesterday. When I talk about being truthful, I'm more honest today than I was yesterday. But if I walk around touting these things like I know them, there's no place for them. There's no place for me to make any growth whatsoever. And it's actually, this is, so if I have this really dirty pot, right? This dirty cup, this dirty drinking vessel that's just filled with all kinds of germs. And I put some water into it and I drink that water. Chances are I'm going to become sick because it has all these, maybe it has E. coli, maybe it has salmonella, whatever it has, all those things, I'm going to drink it. This is what, if I'm pulling all these scriptures and I'm drinking them, so to speak, right? It becomes very dangerous because then I'm living a lie. If I'm not embodying them, I'm living a lie, I'm not digesting them, and I'm going to become very sick. And I'm not talking like sick, like cancer. I'm talking like, bloated, spiritual pride. Those things that are very, very dangerous. So we don't need to keep putting more until we can start working on some of these beautiful adornments that Sita wore. Why do we, like Swamiji says, it doesn't matter how much you know, but what you know, you better practice. You've got to practice. And we need to be brutally honest, but radically accepting. Because we can't keep putting information in. We're going to get clogged. It's going to damage us. And we started the whole thing with, we don't need more teachers, preachers. We do need teachers. We don't need more preachers in this world. So start asking yourself, how honest am I? How honest am I with myself? How honest am I with others? Do people really know who I am? Do I hide behind things because I feel ashamed or because I feel guilty or because I feel like I want people to have a certain concept, a certain belief about me? If it's not true, the mask is going to fall and people are going to see it. And then when we get to that place, right, then we can really say, this Ishvari Pranadhana, I trust God. Meaning I trust my inner dweller. My inner dweller is always going to guide me and always going to have everything that I need. And give me everything that I need. And then we can say, this is a beautiful path. This is a beautiful journey that we are on. It's an incredible journey. And how fabulous that we are on this path of Raja Yoga. We are on the royal path. We are on the exalted path. We have everything that we need to accomplish the goal. We just have to do the work. Okay.